3 weeks on from the visit to Portimao, from Assen, the 2025 Motul FIM Superbike World Championship moves northeast, crossing 3 borders into north of Italy. The first of 2 visits to the country this year. First up, the southern expanses of the Lombardia region, 100 kilometres from star capital Milan, for our second visit to the Cremona circuit. The shortest track on the calendar, 13 corners, mostly first and second gear with high lean angles, so a tough venue at which to pass, particularly in the early stages of the lap. The start-finish straight measures just 400 metres, so there's no real way through there. Niccolò Bulega showed some weakness at turn 4 last year, and Alex Lowe's made a couple of moves at turn 6. But otherwise, the first overtaking opportunity isn't until turn 8, Bosco, where Danilo Petrucci produced his Race 1 winning move on Andrea Iannone last year. But the main action hotspots are turns 10 and 11, both named after nearby towns. Cremona, turn 10, sees the riders drop from over 200 to just 80 kilometres per hour for a long second gear left-hander with a natural line wide on the entry, creating an open door for a block pass. Then turn 11, San Martino del Lago, at the end of the 885-metre back straight, where Bautista made his move on teammate Bulega for P2 in race 2 a year ago, before the longest braking zone on the circuit, measuring over 200 metres. The lap record was set by Danilo Petrucci in last year's Superpole race, a 1 minute 28.289. Niccolò Bulega suffered just 2 non-scores in the whole of his rookie 2024 campaign. He retired twice just on Sunday in Assen 2 weeks ago. He sat second with 4 laps remaining in the Superpole race before his bike switched off suddenly. Then seemingly a recurrence of the issue later that day cost him a near certain victory in race 2. The end of one of the top 10 podium streaks of all time. The loss of at least 34 points in the championship made for a bitter Bulega in Assen. Now he arrives to what's a real home round. He was born just an hour's drive from Cremona, the other side of Parma, looking to restore his championship advantage. Steve English alongside me for race 1 of the 2025 Acerbis Italian round. Bulega really should be over at least 55 points clear now of his nearest rival in the championship. The Dutch round last time out really was a missed opportunity for him and for Ducati.
Yeah, he should be, but he isn't, and that makes it exciting for us now as we move into the second quarter of the season. Toprak Razgatlioglu's been up against it all year. The changes to that BMW, they aren't working for him, and they're having to just scramble to try and perform as well as they can. Toprak's put it on the front row of the grid, but he's up against it with all these Ducatis at the front of the field. He knows it's going to be a tough one today.
Despite that misfortune in Assen, Niccolò Bulega still leads the championship, with Toprak Razgatlioglu making only 1 out of the 3 podiums at the Dutch round. Andrea Locatelli moves from 5th to 3rd in the standings, taking advantage of a race 1 crash for Alvaro Bautista and Danilo Petrucci's disappointing Sunday in the Netherlands. Andrea Iannone and Scott Redding each drop a place to Sam Lowe's, but thus far Bulega is trading off his early advantage of 42 points over Toprak Razgatlioglu after Phillip Island. That came down to 29 after Portimao and now sits at 21. A lifeline for Toprak, who has been inconsistent so far.
And he needed it as well, but for Razgatlioglu, it's so different compared to last year. It's almost like this is the year everyone expected him to have 12 months ago, but without the super concession parts on that frame, back to the standard frame, it really has just changed everything for him. Ducati's doing a great job to get the most out of their V4R. Bulega has been nothing short of sensational this season. You look at Phillip Island and his dominance. He dug in deep in Portimao. He rode really well in Assen as well. And then this weekend, he's been the rider to beat.
Undoubtedly the fastest man out there at the Dutch round, Niccolò Bulega, much like he was at the Australian round. He wasn't going to get another hat-trick that time, although he dominated race 1 by almost 8 seconds. Wet weather meant he was more vulnerable in the Superpole race, but he was set to dominate race 2, having charged through from his worst ever grid slot in P10, only to retire as deep into the race as lap 20. The only consolation, in fact, he's proved again he is the rider to beat.
Yeah, exactly, and he's been able to show that he is the favourite right now. What's interesting, though, is you can see riders staying in their pit box. It's 30 degrees out right now, 45 degrees track temperature. Pit lane opens for 5 minutes, and you can see for Toprak here, he's waiting as long as he can. He wants to be in the cool and the calm of his pit box rather than out there on the grid under the sun.
Toprak Razgatlioglu was only out of the rostrum places 3 times in 30 races in 2024. He's already been off the podium 4 times just in the opening 3 rounds of 2025. The 12 points he lost in race 1 of the Dutch round were immediately wiped out with victory in the Superpole race, his first win in the wet. But he really failed to maximise Bulega's race 2 retirement, left 17 points on the table, blistering tyres throughout the weekend, really struggling on those longer runs.
Yeah, and certainly that's going to be the question mark going into this race as well. High track temperatures, already 45 degrees. It's a little bit cooler than it was yesterday, but not by much.
So we've taken you through the top 2 in the championship standings. Let's take you through the full grid, starting with our rider presentation video. Four front row starts out of 4 for Nicolo Bulega and Toprak Razgatlioglu, the lead duo in the championship, renewing their rivalry in Superpole this morning. And for the second time this season, it was Bulega who came out on top. Razgatlioglu struggling just to climb from the 3rd row to maintain his run. Sam Lowe's pole sitter last time out in Assen makes it back-to-back front row starts. Behind, Alvaro Bautista matches his best Superpole result of the season. Andrea Locatelli originally qualified in 8th, but he's been demoted 3 places for slow riding on the line in front of Danilo Petrucci. Petrucci qualifying down in P13, one of the biggest stories of Superpole earlier on today.
Yeah, triple winner last year, and down the grid he was complaining about traffic. He was held up on a couple of fast laps, and Andrea Locatelli being penalised for that, dropping 3 places on the grid back to the 4th row. But for Petrucci, from the 5th row, it's so difficult to make your progress around here, but he's a guy we're going to have to keep an eye on.
Latest information we're receiving up here in commentary is that Tito Rabat has stopped out on the circuit, so halfway down the back straight according to our GPS tracker. And that's bad news for Rabat at the circuit where, of course, he put in his best performances last season with those 2 top 10 finishes.
Yeah, last year on the Pachetti Kawasaki, this year on that Yamaha, and it's a shame for Tito, but we'll wait and see if he's able to get that bike back to the pits and get himself started from pit lane.
So we've taken a look through the starting order. We're working our way up towards the front here. Nicolo Bulega versus Toprak Razgatlioglu, 4th different venue for this championship battle, and so far it's only been at Portimao where Toprak has been able to genuinely go toe-to-toe with Nicolo Bulega.
Yeah, it's the only chance we've really seen for them to have a battle, and that's what makes it quite interesting, that there's 21 points between them. Toprak's played his get-out-of-jail-free card. Obviously, he had his non-score on the Sunday in Phillip Island as well, but certainly for Razgatlioglu, he knows that these next 3 rounds really are critical. Here in Cremona, Most, and then on Ducati's home turf in Misano, and he needs to make sure he's able to keep himself in title contention these next 3 rounds.
Bulega, the man to beat. He's led every race this season. He's won 4 of them. We'll expect to add Cremona to his 5-circuit win list this weekend. Failed to win here last season, despite the absence of Toprak Razgatlioglu. It was a weekend in which he left 20 points on the table, defeated at the hands of the likes of Petrucci, Iannone, Lowe's and Bautista. But he's made a big step forward this season so far.
Yeah, a huge step forward, and he was already very good last year, but all the progress that we've seen from him, Superpole was always a strength last year. Now he's got that consistency week in, week out. He's also been able to show that he can lead a team, and that's always something that's a bit of a question mark until a rider takes on that mantle.
Alongside him on the front row of the grid here, Sam Lowe's and Toprak Razgatlioglu. Toprak narrowed his championship deficit by 8 points in Assen last time out, but only made 1 podium in the 3 races. Also missed out on the rostrum spots in Phillip Island on day 2, but that was because of an incident in the Superpole race and a retirement in race 2. This was on pure pace over 21 laps. He was 4th in race 1, down in 8th in race 2. Sam Lowes, fresh from his first podium at the Dutch round, finds second place in the Superpole race after qualifying there on pole with a new lap record. Battled back from 10th after running wide at turn 1. 22 points at the Dutch round, his best score to date, and it could have been more. He was taken out of race 1 by Alvaro Bautista while among the front runners.
Yeah, and that's the one thing for Sam, is he's been able to show from Phillip Island to Portimao to Assen, now to Cremona, that he's got speed and it's legit that he's up there at the front. He did a 20-lap run yesterday, so he feels really confident in what the tyre is going to do underneath him. Yeah,
only scored 5 points here in Cremona last season, I should say. It was his second weekend back from an arm injury. He scored 53 points in the whole of last season. He's already on 52 just from a quarter of the races in 2025. 5 top 6 finishes to his name this season so far for Sam Lowes, as we see Nicolo Bulega receive his Superpole award, the 6th career pole for Nicolo Bulega. Hasn't been out of the top 2 in qualifying this season so far.
Yeah, and what we saw last year was a rider pretty much always on the front row as well. We know that's one of his strengths. He's able to switch on that Ducati really well. That gives him a big advantage over his teammate.
Alvaro Bautista has led the championship after the opening 3 rounds in each of the last 3 seasons. Finds himself down in 4th in the standings at the quarter mark in 2025, and it's taken him 9 races to lead a lap for the first time. He ultimately succumbed to Andrea Locatelli in race 2 of the Dutch round, but claimed his 6th podium of the campaign. Bautista with a 3rd and a 2nd from 13th and 6th on the grid respectively here last season. Did pass teammate Nicolo Bulega late in race 2. We'll see what he's got to offer at this venue this time around. Bautista, Vierke and Iannone on row 2. Honda, the 4th place manufacturer at present, only a point ahead of Bimota. Their riders have given them some cause for optimism since arriving in Europe. Vierke with a 5th on Saturday in Portimao, 6th in Assen, and now another 2nd row start. Qualified P6 in Portimao. This his best ever qualifying effort, his 40th World SBK round. 4 non-scores in the last 5 races for Andrea Iannone, who's tumbled from 3rd to 7th in the standings in that spell. But this is his best Superpole effort since Phillip Island. Had plenty of pace here last season, although he suffered a couple of retirements. He led 2 laps in race 1, finished 3rd in the Superpole race, chasing his first rostrum finish since the Australian round in February. Remy Gardner back on the podium with 3rd place in race 2 of the Dutch round. Assen, the only venue at which he has reached the rostrum so far. Took his first at the TT circuit last year. Cremona will be a tougher test. Scored only 6 points here in September with a 10th place and 2 retirements. Completing that 3rd row of the grid, Andrea Locatelli and Iker Lecuona. It's just about time to hear the national anthem. Liam Hodgins down on the grid ahead of race 1 here at the Italian rounds.
Yeah, down here on the grid with Andrea Locatelli, first-time race winner at Assen. However, it's been a little bit of a tough weekend, Andrea. Down here in the middle of the pack. Can you just tell us what you couldn't do from race number 1 here today?
Yeah, I mean, for sure we are winning back, but it's a long race, 22 laps here. So we need to manage well. The tempo is going up, especially with Bonnie. So for sure we need to work now with the bike. But yeah, I feel good, so keep pushing on the way and try to do the best. Yeah.
We've seen you from the start making good starts in the last few rounds. Are you expecting maybe you can make a big jump off the start here today?
Yeah, for sure that is important to try to do, and then keep the rhythm. And I repeat, it's a long race, so we need just to find a good rhythm and try to be there.
Andrea, all the best.
Thank you.
Andrea Locatelli, of course, qualified P8, will be starting from P11 after that 3-place penalty. So completing the 3rd row will be Iker Lecuona and also Michael van der Mark. Lecuona put in his best round of 2024 here in Cremona. 28 points for a 4th, 5th and 6th. 20 points in Assen last time out with a 5th place in race 1 and 4 top 10 finishes in the last 5 races.
And we saw with the Igor on the grid there, the cool vest on just to try and get his body temperature down before the start of the race. Michael van der Mark with a big fan on the grid instead.
Cremona made his 100th World SBK start last time out. He scored exactly 500 points. Michael van der Mark, only in Portimao we've seen the best of him so far this season. 3 top 7 finishes there and 24-point score that accounts for more than 2/3 of his 2025 total. 5th in the Superpole race in Assen 3 weeks ago in tricky conditions. Otherwise, it was a disappointing home round. While Toprak struggled to 8th in race 2, van der Mark tumbled out of the points altogether. Scott Redding here, lining up P10, picked up 30 points at the season-opening Australian round. His best result since the 2022 French round, but he's added just 11 points since then. Expectations much higher on his return to Ducati machinery this season. Redding didn't make the top 10 in 3 races here in Cremona in 2024.
Yeah, really important for Scott to find something as well. Assen and Portimao were very difficult for him. Phillip Island, obviously the highlight of the season, but he needs to be back on that form week in, week out.
Andrea Locatelli, finally a race winner. The longest wait for any rider for a first victory in World SBK. His 154th start, past Gardner and then Bautista for second, inheriting the win when Bulega hit problems. Even Toprak couldn't win in Assen on the Yamaha. Massive result for the manufacturer, who last season finished 4th in the Manufacturers' Championship and failed to win a race. And for Locatelli as well to have finally ticked that box.
Yeah, and for Andrea, it's really important now to make progress right from the start, because van der Mark, Cremona, Remy Gardner, Scott Redding, he needs to beat all those riders and then try and pick off one of the riders in the front 2 rows of the grid. Maybe Xavi Vierge falls back into his path and it gives him the chance of a top 6 finish, but that's the damage limitation you have to do if you're 3rd in the championship.
Yeah, 3rd in the championship, the only rider to have scored points in every race. 3 podiums in the last 2 rounds and top scorer actually last time out in Assen with 51 points. Completing the 4th row of the grid, Axel Bassani, only 11 points from the Dutch round for him. It's actually his lowest score of the season so far, but Assen was the most promising weekend so far for Bimota. Bassani and Lowe's 5th and 6th in race 2. Bassani also rode well in race 1 until crashing out from 6th.
Yeah, and for Axel, it's been obviously a much better season this year compared to last year in the Kawasaki, but he needs those hard results now to really come in over these next couple of rounds.
Danilo Petrucci back at the scene of his memorable visit a year ago when he became the first independent rider to score a World SBK hat-trick, his first 3 wins in the championship. That weekend qualified P3 but started in P6 following a penalty. Here he has to climb from all the way down in P13. It's his worst Superpole since Donington Park last year.
Yeah, started the season with those 7 really strong performances up inside the top 6, and then for him the last day in Assen was really tough, so he needs to make sure he's able to come back from that. The 5th row of the grid though was really difficult around here to make that progress from, so I think for Petrucci he needs to be in the top 10 at the end of the first lap, and then you just kind of suck it and see where it's going to go.
Yep, did get through from 6th to win race 1 here, of course, a year ago. Petrucci a little bit unfortunate last time out with some technical problems in the Superpole race, and then that hampered him into race 2. Alongside Petrucci on the 5th row here, Dominic Egerter. P14 on the grid, rather masking actually the poor pace he had here in Cremona yesterday. Is still finding his feet at this venue because he missed the 2024 Italian round due to injury. 4 top 10 finishes in the last 2 rounds, so Egerter doing a solid job as usual. He's actually 5 points ahead of Remy Gardner, even after the Australians' Assen podium.
What's really important for him though is, of those top 10 finishes 4 in a row, they're in the feature length races, so in the longer races he's been stronger than in the Superpole race, so for him this is where it really counts. High track temperatures, maybe the race comes to him.
4 top 10 finishes in 3 rounds and 20 points for World SBK rookie Jari Montella, but he's failed to score in 4 of the other races. Very inconsistent thus far. But at the Dutch round, a lap 2 crash in race 1, then contact into turn 1 in race 2 rather covered up his pace, and he'll be looking for a clean weekend here. Alex Lowe's P16, the only rider not on a Ducati to have made the podium here last season, bounced back from a race 1 crash in Cremona a year ago to take 2nd in the Superpole race. Expectations are a bit more modest in the first season for Bimota, and although there was some decent pace in practice, P16 on the grid for Lowe's means this one could be a bit of a slog. Jonathan Ray making his first appearance of the season, therefore his first with new crew chief Uri Payares, formerly his chief mechanic. Missed the 2024 Italian round due to injury. This time he returns from another injury in time for Cremona, a fractured left foot sustained in pre-season testing. Garrett Gerloff completes the 6th row of the grid. Then it's Bahatin Sofoglu, Ryan Vickers and Tito Rabat, Taz McKenzie, Gabriele Riu and Zaidi completes the 24-rider field. Let's head down to the grid then once again with Liam.
Yeah, standing on the front row of the grid next to Sam Lowe's got Leon Camere here, and Leon, it's another great showing by the whole team, and of course Sam. Podium last time out at Assen, pole position, another front row start. Just tell us how you and the team are feeling, and Sam is feeling ahead of race 1.
Very good, to be honest. He's done a lot of good work throughout the sessions. We put a really good race running yesterday, and pace has been really good. Also, one lap pace has been good. A few little issues in the qualifying. Otherwise, we think we could have had a little bit more, but he's riding really good. So. Yeah, I think we're in a good place for the race. He was also pretty sick last night, so he's not feeling the best in himself. So he's got to try and manage as best he can for the race, and hopefully he feels well enough at the end to be in the fight and put on a good show.
Yeah, we saw race pace was great yesterday, and it's such a shame to hear about feeling sick yesterday. Do you think his physical condition will be okay for the entire race?
This is the question mark at the minute. So he's sort of wants to vomit, and stomach's not been good, and feels like it's sort of flu-y symptoms, you know. So. But I think he'll be all right. We just have to see towards the end of the race. Obviously, it's quite hot today, and that takes it out of the riders as well. So, yeah, we'll see.
Fingers crossed and all the best.
Thank you.
Yeah, we had heard about some illness for Sam Lowe's, unfortunately, this weekend so far. Did remarkably well to dig out the result he did in Superpole. Of course, over the longer distance of 23 laps, that's where it becomes a bit more critical.
Yeah, it really is difficult whenever you're under the weather over the course of a full race like this, particularly when you've got 30 degrees air temperature. It's going to be a tough one for Sam.
Easier if you start at the front, though, to battle away and have high motivation, because there's every chance of a podium if he can battle through.
Yeah, exactly, and that's certainly going to be the goal for him and for the BDS team.
There is Sam Lowe's on the right of the picture as we make our way towards our pole sitter, Nicolo Bulega, for the second time this season. He leads them off. Sam Lowe's second consecutive front row start, and Toprak Razgatlioglu, his championship rival. With 4 wins apiece and 2 retirements each.